Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. Ito si Felipe M. Jr. na magbibigay sa inyo ng ilang paliwanag tungkol sa kultura at tungkol sa kulturang Filipino. I entitled my lecture, Pagpapakatao, a Culture of Healing, because that's our culture. Well, first, let's define culture. UNESCO defines culture as the whole complex of distinctive spiritual, material, intellectual, and emotional features that characterize a society or social group, including not only the arts and letters, but also modes or ways of life, the fundamental rights of the human being, value system, traditions, and beliefs. Culture is a mindset, the one that determines the political and economic agendas and behavior of nations. If a culture prioritizes power and wealth, the consequence will be a divided society with much inequality of power and wealth. On the other hand, if a culture values the common good or social investment more, there will be a more equitable distribution of wealth and power and will not be monopolized by a few. In any society, at any time in the history of the world, there are at least 4 types of culture. 2 are ego or fear-based. One is the culture of power, where people are attached to power and privilege, control, and domination. Second one is culture of wealth, where people are attached to wealth and material goods, possessions, pleasure, and comfort. The third is trust-based, the culture of the common good, or what we may call the culture of the higher self. We have a saying, madaling maging tao, mahirap magpakatao. It's easy to be born as a human being, but it's very hard to be humane. This is the culture devoted to the search for wisdom, spirituality, creativity, strength of character, love, and sharing. The culture of devotion to a higher cause. Well, persons addicted to the culture of power see themselves as outsiders. They feel alienated from people and are purely motivated by self-interest. Driven by fear, insecurity, and hatred, they view everybody else as hostile and potential enemies, except for their immediate family and inner circle of allies or friends. They behave like bullies, attempting to subjugate, control, and manipulate others, especially the weak or the poor. Being outsiders, they cannot feel compassion for others. The only language they know is force and violence. Persons addicted to the culture of wealth similarly feel as outsiders. They don't have empathy for others and are mostly self-serving. Also driven by inner insecurity and fear of a hostile social and natural environment, they become ruthlessly competitive, amassing wealth at the expense of others. They consider everything, objects, living things, and people as commodities that can be controlled and traded to satisfy their insatiable greed for money. Well, people who belong to the culture of common good have a deep feeling of being insiders, tagaloob sila, and not separate from society. They have compassion and capacity to sacrifice for the good of others. Often, they are devoted community workers who are not driven by self-interest. Instead of force, they use the language of persuasion, lead by example, volunteer their services for free, and initiate community self-help endeavors, which we call bayanihan. Through time, however, a society constructs a 4th culture, a unifying vision of life, which includes a worldview, or the way you look at life, idea of reality, anong katotohanan. From this arise a people's core culture, which in turn promote the cultivation or culturing of skills that realize these values. According to UNESCO, these are the contents of ethnicity. Oral traditions and expressions, including languages as a vehicle of intangible cultural heritage. Performing arts, such as traditional music, dance, and theater. Social practices, rituals, and festive events. Knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe, and traditional craftsmanship. The Filipinos are very rich in all of this. It's important to note that the core principles of Filipino ethnicity, which are kapwa-based, are built upon the culture of the common good rather than the culture of power or the culture of wealth. That is why relationships are more important for most Filipinos than economic power. So just to reiterate, there are 3 main cultures in any society. The culture of power, which attracts politicians, military. Culture of wealth, which attracts businessmen, tycoons. And the culture of the common good, where very few people are attracted to because it's quite hard to do something for the common good. So This includes civic society, spiritual leaders, humanitarians, educators, like Jose Rizal, Leonardo Mabini, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Oscar Schindler, and we can add Pope Francis. Quite difficult to be in the culture of common good because you have to sacrifice a lot. Now, the core value of the Filipino is really kapwa, shared identity or shared goodness. This is the core of Filipino psychology, humaneness at the highest level. If there's no word for kapwa in other Philippine languages, the process in Cebuano would be buot, in Ilocano is nakam, among the items of Pampanga is pamilamu-lamu. And you can also use the word bayanihan. It's very close to the meaning of kapwa, because bayanihan really involves the whole community. Kapwa implies a unique moral obligation to treat one another as equal fellow human beings. And to understand kapwa, here's a metaphor. If you think of the universe, entire universe, as a very big, infinite sun, at the center is God, or the creator, or we can call it CLP, creative living principle of the universe. That's the core. And each of us, according to Filipino belief, is a ray of God. If you are a cow on one ray, and the other one, ako, in the other ray, we all come from the center. That means we are all one. That's why the Filipino core idea is treat the other person as you treat yourself, because the other person is also yourself. Each one of us is a unique expression of this creative living presence. Bawat isa sa atin ay sinag ng dakilang medika. Every person is a soul, an individual ray of this infinite source. Kapwa is an awareness of the rootedness of each one of us in the one divine essence within. That's why it implies the golden rule of all the great religions. Treat your neighbor as you treat yourself, because your neighbor is yourself. A very beautiful philosophy. I hope we can practice it. Unlike pakikisama, pakikipagkapwa has no negative connotation. The more one engages in it, the more the goodness in the persons involved is evoked from within. That's why kapwa is an inner principle of shared goodness. Pakikipagkapwa excludes any action that may be detrimental or harmful to other human beings. It's definitely inconsistent with the exploitative human transactions. It is the capacity to recognize the good in every human being and integrate oneself within the wider social fabric. Pakikisama is not really a Filipino value. It's universal. Pakikisama means getting along well with others. And who does not like to get along well with others? This happens anywhere in the world. And it's not really Filipino because it's everywhere. Pakikisama is mainly for outsiders. For people, it's still considered ibang tao. And pakikisama can be quite negative. Pwede kayo mapasama sa kalokohan, basag ulo, korupsyon. Why do we like to do pakikisama? Bakit na gusto makisama? Well, this could be politeness or expectation of future concessions or immediate rewards. When we blame Filipino core culture for its so-called deficiencies and negative qualities like crab mentality, abusive family dynasties, and endemic corruption, these are actually manifestations of the deep-seated universal addiction or greed of people who belong to the cultures of power and cultures of wealth. These are two cultures that you find anywhere in the world. They are not necessarily Filipino, although maraming Filipino na nalululong dyan sa culture na yan. We may be guilty of inaccurate analysis if we blame Filipino core culture for the ills of Philippine society, which are rooted more in our elites, upper classes, or family dynasties' intervention in the development process. These are the elites who, since the Spanish period, have been addicted to the culture of power and culture of wealth. According to the former head of NEDA, Dr. Jesus Pernia, just 40 elite families are alleged to be in control of 76% of our nation's wealth. The fourth is actually the neglect of culture in government policy making. We even go so far as to fault our culture for the seemingly perennial state of Philippine underdevelopment. Yet it is actually the neglect or ignorance of our core culture that is the problem. Why? Because the core principles of Filipino indigenous psychology are built on the highly spiritual concept of pakikipagkapwa, pagpapakatao, humaneness, delicadeza, and transcending narrow self-interest. Kagandahang loob or generosity of inner self, no? If we practice these concepts or values, how can there be corruption? How can there be underdevelopment? but this belongs to the higher culture of what? Culture of the common good. It's easier to amass power and amass wealth than to be good, no? Well, that's why Pagpapakatao is really very, very Filipino. It's compassion. Among the core principles of Filipino psychology rooted in Pagpapakatao is malasakit, which is the capacity to take the burden of the other person as one's own. This is the outstanding virtue of many of our OFWs. I'm sure you are aware of many relatives or neighbors who became OFWs and brought home a lot of money for you to have your own houses. No? They save a lot for their families back there, especially in Panay, in Bohol, Cebu, and other parts of the Visayas. Precisely, it's the glaring absence in the governance of the noble or even sublime principles of our core culture that is at the very root of our nation's ills. What we saw really is culturally rooted governance, which is practiced only in exceptional cases, as in the much appreciated term of the late Secretary Juan Javier of the OH, or President Ramon Magsaysay. Now let's go to the specificities or the particulars of culture. Culture may be called the genius of a people. Every culture is unique. No two cultures are identical. That's why every culture, being unique, has a strength no other culture has. This is its gift or genius. May henyo ang bawat kultura. Having distinctive strengths, cultures cannot be considered superior or inferior, just different. Look at Japanese culture. From time immemorial, it has always valued minimalist efficiency. They're very good in working with precision in the micro level. Look at their flag, very simple. A red circle and a white. Haiku, a 17-syllable poem, but very effective. Origami and bonsai, they are miniatures. Accordion type lantern. They're very excellent in microchips. Precision cameras, that's why the best cameras in the world are Japanese. They're very good in robotics. They're very good in nanotechnology, which is the technology of the very small. And they have many writing Olympics and capsule hotels, which are very small hotels that are very cheap. Look, listen to this one. Huh? Listen to this, very Japanese genius you find in this bento watch. How minimalist. Complete with chopsticks, tweezers, a complete lunch. Siyempre, mga Pilipino hindi mabubusog yan. But they bother to do these things. Complete bento, all the foods. And then, they bring out the chopsticks. Very, very Japanese. Very interesting. I don't think the Filipinos will ever like this. Hindi kayo mabubusog. How about the Chinese? Chinese culture has always been good in the practical arts or skills for practical living, such as culinary arts, business, pottery, acupuncture, and calligraphy. No? That's why there is Chinese food all over the world. They're very good in business. How about the Germans? The Germans have always been geniuses in fitting parts together in harmonious order, resulting in great strength and durability. No, their heavy-duty furniture, like cameras, can last for a lifetime. And study cars like Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz are really built to last. Bernstein, an American composer, praised the Fifth Symphony of Beethoven. I think you know that symphony. Bernstein praised it as a perfect symphony because all of its parts harmoniously fit together so well that nothing is in excess and nothing is lacking. This ability to organize things in harmonious order could very well be the reason why Germany continues to have the strongest economy in the whole of Europe. So culture is essentially a mindset. The way people think, feel, and perceive life, their values and attitudes, their expressive forms, their behavior that come from this mindset. A very interesting concept of mindsets are those of the Lowland, Ilocanos, and Visayas, who share so many things as Filipinos, yet quite far apart in character and temperament. Let's look at the forms. Which is Ilocano and which is Visayan. Closed form is a form which is quite compact. Walang mga nakausli, no, from the center. Open forms have many protrusions away from the center. Which do you think the Ilocanos like? Well, of course, knowing how thrifty the Ilocanos are, they would like closed forms, compact. The Visayans are very expressive, that's why they will like the open forms. And another set of forms, centripetal. Centripetal is movement inward. Centrifugal is movement outward. The Ilocanos like close and inward palm movement in dance, while the Visayans like open and outward palm movement in dance. Even when you peel fruits like mangoes, no, or santol, the peeling of fruits in the Ilocos will be in inward direction, while in the Visayas, peeling of fruits will be in the outward direction. Look at the scrolls of charges in the Ilocos. They're inward scrolls of charges. Even their candy, the Baricucha, has an inward scroll. While in the Visayas, you will find protruding ornamental elaborations. Well, as you said, that the Ilocanos are good in saving, while the Visayas are good in spending, because they're very, very expressive, no? Even the end of the lighted end of the cigar in the Ilocos is inside the mouth. The lighted end of the cigar inside the mouth. This is Ilocano, which is Visayan. Look, in front of Pawai charts, you can find the closed palms of the Ilocanos at the left. On the right are very Visayan. Very Visayan dancers. Look at the open palms. And when it comes to intervals, spaces, Ilocanos like closed spaces or intervals, while the Visayans like wide spaces or wide intervals. Stepwise movement is very Ilocano, while skip-wise, leap-wise movement is very Visayan. Even in music, you'll find that notes are very close to one another in Ilocano music, while notes are quite far apart in the Visayas. Listen to Pamalinawin, very close to one another in one nota. While Dandansoy, look at how far. Anong biday has two disjunct progressions, but the rest are conjunct, so close by them. Ano, ili-ili? Oh, look at how far the intervals are. Even Pangasinan songs are very like Ilocano. That's like, because they are very close in temperament. Walay Manoconderas has very conjunct intervals, or swing intervals that are very close to one another. By Ohoy, Alibang Bao, he's very Visayan, has intervals that are quite far. You can see, the arts are very expressive of your values. The best mirror of values are the arts. Lalabas at lalabas yung mga, the way you feel, the way you think, will come out in the arts. Well, the Ilocanos also like very compact foods, densely packed foods like their tupig, marabou milk candy, buko pie, pulburon. While the Visayans and the Tagalogs have loosely packed foods. One time, I bought pulburon in Ordaneta, Pangasinan. Nabitawan ko, nahulog sa lupa, tumalbog pa. Imagine pulburon bouncing. That cannot happen in Ilocano, that cannot happen in Tagalog or Visayan pulburon. Why? Look at this. This is the Parabo candy, buko pie of the Ilocanos. Look at how compact. Here, it can become a deadly weapon if you like. Very compact. And Ilocano charges are simple. Their foundations are clearly articulated. The facades are plain and simple, while Visayan charges are where you find structural parts most often hidden by a profusion of ornate and decorative elements. Contrast this one. Our church in Ilocos Norte and Liang Out Church in Iloilo. How different. Most Ilocano dances are work-related, while Visayan dances are playful and festive. Street dancing is a Visayan phenomenon. It was invented by the Visayans very clearly. That's why there are so many street dancing types in Visayas, hati-hatihan, dinagyang, sinulog, binirayan, halaran, maskara, and so on. Why? Why the difference? The values are the reason why the kind of dances are work-related and the design dances are playful and festive. Look at this. Lucano's love is durable. Anything compact, no, is durable, stable. That's why you can save on resources. And therefore you'll survive more if you can save on resources. Patipid kayo, you have so much to survive on. While the Visayas love variety, color, excitement, sumptuousness, exuberance. Why? Because the very high value of the Visayas is celebrating the blessings of life. That's why the biggest Santo Niño celebrations, expressions of gratitude to the Santo Niño are found in the Visayas, no? Because they like to celebrate the blessings of life. So these are the different talents of Ilocanos and Visayas, and they are very cultural, no? Expressed very well in the way people behave. Now, culture is really a heritage of skills. It's our main human resource. Knowing our culture means knowing our strengths, directions we can take towards sustainable development and our place in the world. Any kind of development is culture-based. Understanding the culture of a people enables a leader to govern well. Can we draw upon the outstanding cultural strengths of our ethnicity to formulate a vision for the nation? Yes, of course. We can tap our cup of rich genius for human connectivity and soulfulness as a people, because we are among the most highly, if not the most highly relational in the world, with superb skills in healing and balancing polar energies and passion for creative participatory processes. But many of our educators, government agencies, officials, and media practitioners are almost clueless about Filipino cultural gifts. We find our culture superficially defined as a mixture or hodgepodge of Malay, Chinese, Spanish, and American influences. There is no such thing. On the contrary, our shared cultural heritage is a set of philosophically, ideologically coherent set of premises and corresponding value orientations, resulting in well-defined skills and patterns of behavior that can make us truly proud of ourselves. Influences are not that important. It's not influences that matter, but what we do to them. How the recipient culture modifies, transforms, or gives them new meanings and functions. What matters is how we make influences our own, how we Filipinize or indigenize them. Examples, the tango, instead of the tango, like we made it a love song, like we convert it into a love song. Instead of mooncake, we would like hopya. This is really inevitable. We Filipinize everything. It's just a matter of time. According to Dr. Ornedo, a cultural historian, the stranger of yesterday is the native of today. There's no exception to that. Look at what we did to the Willys Jeep, which is drab, olive green looking Jeep vehicle for a war vehicle that was used by the Americans during the war. What did we do to this? Well, you can see this can only sit 4 people, 2 at the in front, 2 at the back, and you can enter to the back. Very impractical as a passenger vehicle. So we elongated it. We converted it into this baroque, multicolored looking vehicle, passenger vehicle called a jeepney. This is unique. There's nothing like this in the world. It's very Filipino and it's very important to preserve it. Look how creative we are. Hindi nyo na makikilala yung original Willys Jeep just by looking at this. Very, very different now. This is how we Filipinize everything. Why do we give high value to connectedness with others? And why is this a culture of healing and well-being as well? The ultimate basis of human connectivity in Philippine culture is the belief in kapwa, that each one of us is a unique expression of a divine being or God. The bawat isa sa atin ay sinag ng dakilang may likha, thus making us all one. And we go through life exploring, realizing, and strengthening this oneness. That's why we love to connect, especially to people. We are among the most highly relational in the world, kung hindi pinaka-relational, no? We're happy being together when we eat, sleep, work, travel, pray, create, or celebrate. We like to feel connected to the world, God and people, God and nature, but most of all, We like to connect to people. Kaya walang gusto maiwanan sa picture taking. We begin with one or two, and then we end up with something as big as this. Togetherness is happiness. We hardly eat alone. When somebody is eating alone, naawa kayo, ba't ka nag-iisa? Sumasamahan kita. Invite a person to your party, how many will come? Sometimes it's a whole battalion. Our hospitals always have an extra bed because there's always a bantay. And we smile almost all the time because that's the easiest way to connect. We don't like to give only a few prices because kawawa yung hindi maaabusan ng prices. That's why we have invented special prices so that everybody will get a price. We're so eager for social networking. That's why we're the social media capital of the world. We're the texting, Facebook, and selfie capital of the world. Uuwi na lang kayo, may pabalot pa. Malata sa sharing of winnings. Bonus, of course, sharing of the earnings of the company. Pasalubong is almost a sacred ritual because we like to give our loved ones gift from a journey, from our journey. Look at how expressive the arts are. 99% of Philippine paintings will have no distant horizon. We'll put something to block the horizon. Unlike in Western painting where you can see the horizon, very distant horizon. We don't like this. Why? Look, Amor Solo will put those trees, bamboo leaves there, lipahat, to block the horizon. Why? Because a horizon like this will be so distant, you will not see the people anymore. Even the people here at the middle ground, it's already so small, how can you relate to them? We like to relate to people, and the people should be quite close. And there will be no need for distant horizons like this. That's why the Filipino popular culture is culture devotion to the family and sanctity of the home. Why? Because nothing can surpass the family in social connectivity. If we like to connect to people, the best way to connect is through the family. And the strongest connection is the mother-child connection. Mother Mary, baby Jesus Christ has become a mythical symbol of the sacred mother-child relationship in Filipino popular culture. Kasi nga, napaka-Filipino niyan. Mula pa noong araw, we have really founded the family on the relationship of mother and child at the cornerstone of the family. And maybe this is the reason why we have the longest Christmas celebration in the world, because the Christmas or nativity is about mother and child relationship. Likewise, our ancestors are revered, or they serve to connect the family across generations. The ancestral house, because of its importance as a symbol and sanctuary of the family, has been lavished with artistic creativity and developed architectural features that are in harmony with the dynamics of Filipino family and social relationships are definitely non-Western. Don't think that this is Spanish. This is not Spanish. This is just another version of the Bahay Kubo. If you look, this overhang of the roof, these awnings over the windows is to protect us, provide shade, no? And also to protect us against rain. And these are windows that are all around. These are the features of the Bahay Kubo. With capricios that are not found in European architecture. Ventanilla is very Filipino. There is no ventanilla in European architecture. There's no ventanilla in Spanish architecture. That's why this is very Filipino. If there is any influence here, it's not Spanish, it's maybe Chinese. This is the house of Crisologo and Vegan. Look at the ventanilla, where children can enjoy happenings on the streets without endangering their lives, quite safe. And look at the wide open windows. Look at the dining room, the Crisologo house. And this is a very Filipino dining room. It's not practical in cold countries. These are the real Spanish houses, authentic Spanish houses. They have very small windows without awnings. Roofs have no overhang. Houses are made of stone. All how small the windows are. No? On the other hand, this is very Filipino. This is in Tagbilaran, Bohol. This is purely Filipino. There's nothing Spanish about it. Maybe only the grills here. We should stop calling such structures Spanish. They are not Spanish. This is Spanish. Very typical house in Andalusia. Well, I don't think Filipinos will like to stay here. Parang ano yan, prison house. But of course, this is practical in cold countries. This is also a Spanish farmhouse. This is very Filipino. Very Filipino. It's not different from the Bahay Kubo. Oh, there's no difference. Exactly the same in structure. Only the materials have changed. That's why this is Filipino. This is not Spanish at all. This is Spanish. No ventanilla, stone all throughout. Spanish. Very Filipino. Look at the overhang in the roof. stay-proof, windows all around, ventanilla, extension of the floor, and so on. Beautiful. This is Spanish, stone all throughout. Spanish again, Spanish, very Filipino again. Look at the awnings there, ventanillas and official windows. You cannot mistake it as for Spanish houses. Very different from Spanish houses. This is Spanish. This is also, well, another Filipino house in Marikina, which is still existing. This is a Spanish house, a modern Spanish house. Again, not Filipino at all. It's made of stone all throughout. So what is distinctly Filipino? What makes us Filipino? Well, as I said, we like to connect, but when it comes to techniques, we have to find out what techniques make us very Filipino. We have to reiterate, we are people who are highly skilled in creating situations, activities, and things that bring people together. Since we love to connect people, we enjoy and excel in making things and activities to connect people. Therefore, Filipinos are masters of human connectivity. The more an object, activity, or idea connects people to one another, the more we like it, the more we delight in it. That's why we are very creative in things that bring people together, like our feasts of devotion, which bring together all kinds of people. A Filipino fiesta. It's the biggest single event in many provinces that brings together all kinds of people. The Boholanos are very, very good in going home to the province, even if they come from other countries, just to attend the fiestas. No? What else do we do to connect people? Well, art. The artistic gifts of Filipinos are world-class and are great social magnets, such as living tradition dance groups, vocal and instrumental groups. Our choirs are among the best in the world, theater groups, ancestral houses, traditional architecture, and martial arts. And definitely an asset for tourism is the Filipino genius in organizing activities that really bring people together, like beauty pageants and big international events. And the most effective technique that we use to bring people together is multiplicity. What does that mean? Putting in one thing, lagyan nyo ng maraming gamit ang isang bagay. Put many values, put many functions in one thing so that they attract or bring together people of different tastes and preferences. The fiesta has been mentioned, but we can add halo-halo, sinigang, kare-kare, chop suey, medley of songs, and many more. Look at sinigang. I think it should be the national food. Why? Because it's very, very Filipino. It's a multiplicity of soup, vegetable, and meat, fish or shrimp in one bowl. Filipinos also love combining different dishes on one and the same plate, like tapsilog, bangsilog. Why do we like medley? Because lahat ng paborito nyo nandun na. Lahat ng paborito yung kanta. Filipino films are very difficult to classify because even an action film may feature elements of comedy, drama, music, or fantasy. Look at halo-halo. Nandiyan ang lahat. Tanggalin nyo lang ayaw nyo. And this is Galinera, 3-in-1. It's a beautiful work of art. Pahingahan, you can rest on it. And this is kulungan ng manok. It's a chicken coop. That's why it's called Galinera. And multiplicity is found in our sari-sari store. Nandiyan ang lahat ng kailangan ng neighborhood. It's actually an extension of our refrigerator or our pantry. And becomes tambayan because nandun ang lahat ng kailangan ng neighborhood. Bookstore becomes a department store. Drugstore becomes a grocery. Grocery station becomes an eatery. That's the secret of business. If you like to succeed in business in the Philippines, diversify. Because people, when they go to a place, they go together as a family or as friends, no? Barkada. Of course, the champion of multiplicity is the Filipino Mall. There's nothing like it in the world. It brings together, according to Dr. Edilberto Alegre, our scholar of Filipino culture, it brings together the sari-sari store, park, and plaza in gigantic proportions. Walang ganyan sa buong mundo. Where else in the world can you find a mall where you can pay your bills, renew your licenses, apply for passports, magpagamot, magsimba na manood ng sine? That's very unique. This is an expression of the Filipino genius of bringing together all kinds of things. Sumusobra naman ang dami, we find malls everywhere. That's why dapat tigilan na because we are killing the small business owners. We are killing the SMEs, no? Small and medium enterprises because of these malls. We're also very creative in things that bring people together like furniture. That's why furniture design is, Filipino furniture design is recognized internationally. Nagiging collector's items. Bloom chair of Kenneth Cobonpe of Cebu has become an international figure because of his genius in furniture. This is his Bloom chair, very expensive, but quite unique and original. By Pamintuan. also by Kenneth Cobonque, an avian chair. Well, this is the famous bed of Kenneth Cobonque that was ordered by Brad Pitt, made of rattan and very strong. Yes, very strong. Also are very good in pile dividers and all other kinds of furniture. We're maximalist. We are the opposite of the Japanese. Why maximalist? Kasi sa dami ng gustong sabihin, sa dami ng gustong ikwento, sa dami ng gustong express, wala nang paglagyan, punong-puno na. In other words, this comes from our emotional urge to express ourselves. We should not call this horror vacui. This is not horror vacui. This is emotional expression. No? Even in modern art, we find this maximalism by Hernando Campo. There's also very good in theater, madrama ang mga Pinoy. Why? Because we can connect very well through the performing arts. Pinakamagaling na pang-connecta ay performance like dance, music, theater. That's why maliit pa lang kayo, pinapalabas na kayo ng magulang nyo pag mayroong bisita, oy mag-recite ka ng poem, kumanta ka, tugtog ka ng piano, nandito ininang mo, your tita is here. We are trained to become performers from the earliest age, which is very Filipino, so that we become expressive. Because expressiveness is a very high value in Filipino culture. That's why we are the number one karaoke users in the whole world. Nag-aagawan pa sa microphones. And according to one survey, one study in 2012, we are the world's most emotional country. Singapore is the least emotional country in the world. Look, out of 150 countries, according to a study published in 2012, we are the most emotional in the world. If you get 54% and above, you are emotional, and we are much higher than 54 and above. Look at the Philippines there, quite dark purple or dark violet because we're the most emotional in the world. So being expressive, especially to the performing arts, is an effective way of maintaining a healthy heart. This is recommended by doctors all over the world. The more you express yourself through dance, drama, art, music, or cuento, jokes, and all kinds of expression, the healthier you are because expressiveness releases harmful emotions. And we cannot do without media, without tools of expression. Expression and communication are indispensable elements of Filipino culture because we love to connect. Experiencing the great diversity of human and natural phenomena through television, cinema, radio, internet, and print media extends our senses, affirms our being, and connects us to the world. That's why we have to have as many television stations as possible. Hindi pwedeng dalawa lang, hindi pwedeng tatlo lang. We have to have 100 or more. Pag nawala ang mga ito, para na nating tinanggalan ng mata at tainga ang mga tao. The more tools for experiencing the world, the better for the Philippines because the more we can connect to the world. Kaligayahan ng mga Pilipino yan, no? For the Filipinos who value interconnectedness above all, these tools of perception are a non-negotiable demand. Majority of the Filipinos will get angry pag tinanggalan sila ng media. Tinanggalan sila ng television. That's why we are number one in social media in the world. Add to this the means for connecting to the world, like our facility for language and passion for travel and mobility. Maski hindi naman mas malaki ang kita sa abroad, gusto ng Pilipino mag-abroad because we have to connect to the world. Our fetish for English cannot be fully explained by colonial mentality alone. Filipinos love it because it is their best linguistic link to the world. Huh? And another study published in 2013, we are among the countries where people feel most love. We are number one. The three countries with the very highest scores are Philippines, Rwanda, and Puerto Rico. These are the countries where people feel most love. Ibig sabihin, evidence na pinakamahilig tayo makipag-connect sa tao. This is Filipino culture. Look, we are number one in feeling love, 93%. Pinaka-namumula, look, 86% and above. Pinaka-namumula na, or pink. Hindi niya Pilipino yun, pinaka-namumula yung, wow. Oh. It's very easy to identify what is Filipino if you just know where to look. One of our highest values in connecting to people is mapagkalinga. We have to be caring, really. We are a caring culture. That's why we have the best caregivers, nurses, doctors in the world. At our best, we are highly nurturing, caring, sharing people. Magaling tayong yaya with a strong maternal orientation and definitely not loners. Because of our genius in interpersonal communication and nurturing, caring attitude, who excel in the service professions or industry. We share many things. We share with others, making choices, resources. Kumain ka na ba? Food, time, feelings. We greet people. Saan ka pupunta? Saan ka galing? Ano ginawa mo ron? This is sharing of concern. May pista, pwede makikain kahit kaninong bahay na may handa. Uuwi ka, may pabalot ka. Pag may nanalo, malamang may balato. In our food culture, take note, no? In our food culture, we have no recipe for a single person. Unlike in Europe, unlike in the US, there are recipes just for a single person. Sa atin, it's always something that at least 10 people can share. Ganyan ang mga recipe natin, just to show you what kind of people we are. We are communal, no? Sharing of being, now look at the medical implication. Sharing of being makes possible a remarkable degree of openness. If we connect with others so much, we become open, expressive, we belong. And this brings about a higher degree of mental health, lower rates of depression, sense of well-being, and longer lifespans. The more you connect to others, the longer you live. Loners are more prone to drug abuse, heart disease, and cancer. Our core culture of pakikipagkapwa or bayanihan, malasakit, no? Our core culture of human connectivity gives us an edge over other peoples in matters of health and well-being. Medical science has observed that people with lots of friends are usually the healthiest in the world. Lack of friends and close social ties are the hidden cause of heart disease. As social ties increase, mortality rates decrease. And loneliness can literally break our heart and make us sick. Studies also reveal the link between social isolation and cancer. We have a need for bonding. Human beings have a deep need to bond and form connections. It's how we get our satisfaction. Pag hindi kayo makakonekta sa kapwa, we will connect with anything we can find, with drugs or with casinos. And we have to note that selfless love is absolutely necessary for the survival of newborn babies and for their healthy growth. Pag hindi nyo minahal ang baby, it will not develop immunity to diseases because immune systems function only when basic emotional needs such as acceptance and love are met. Now, there's another talent. There's another attribute of our culture which is very, very good for health. This is our understanding of the union of opposites. Opposites are complementary. Look at this Moriones mask. Mabagsik na mukha, but flowers on the headdress. No? We always do this. If you go to Rebalo, Villa, Iloilo, there will be barong, and even in Aklan, no? Kalibo, you'll find barong makers, no? Where you combine masculinity and tenderness, flowers. Ganyan tayo, macho pa kung bulaklak, no? This is how we unite opposites. Why do we unite opposites? Look, we unite opposites like gender relations, food, music, mass, attire, healing, and other things. In all other things, we pair exact opposite. Look, we like to always use matabang malasa principle. Wala lang ganyan sa US, no? Usually, mga pagkain nila, panay ulam lang, no? Tayo, kanin ulam, pagkababay, piniguan, sweet, sour, low melody strings of our instruments, basubo, basag at tulog sa mga instrumento. And when we host in television shows or stage shows, we like female-male hosting, ayaw natin babae o lalaki lang, no? And we are very correct. We are psychologically wise. Because Carl Jung, a very great psychologist, has said that lahat ng klaseng energy, all kinds of energy come from the union of opposites. And the more you unite opposites, the more energy you have. And you become relatively stress-free and not prone to depression. That's why, how fortunate we are that our first man and woman coming out of the bamboo tube after the Great Flood were Sika, Lak, and Sikabay. This is Visayan, ha? Yung malakas at maganda that come from Luzon. That's already a Hispanized version of Sika, Lak, and Sikabay. The original Visayan legend, ang pangalan ng unang lalaki at unang babae ay Sika, Lak, at Sikabay. Si is a pronoun, parang si Roger, si Celia. And ka is also a term of respect for man or woman, ka Roger, ka Celia. Lak is the male principle, Bay is the female principle. No? These are the first man and woman. Pagdating sa Luzon, na Hispanized yan, or naging malakas at maganda, which is unfair. This is funny. It's because pag malakas ka, maski pangit ka, okay lang, malakas. Pag maganda, hindi malakas yan. Maganda nga siya, hindi naman siya malakas. That's why it's unfair to the woman. This is just like the version of man and woman in the Bible, where it says that Adan is malakas, si Eva, maganda pero mahina. That's why subordinate ang babae, nanggaling lang sa tadyang ng lalaki. This is Western. That is not malakas at maganda. It's not Filipino. Let's erase malakas at maganda from our books. Because it's actually the Visayan version. The earlier version is Sika, Lak, and Sikabay. And look at later, there is Sikatuna. It's not Sikatuna, it should be Sikatuna. Because in Waray, tuna means earth or mundo. That's why it's Sikatuna. The term of respect, Sika. Ka is a term of respect, Sikatuna. You have to understand the origins of these words, no? Now, because of our concept of gender equality, we have the highest gender equality in the whole of Asia and always in the top 10 in the whole world. Mula pa ng 2006 until 2018, hindi ko pa nakukuha yung data for 2019 and 2020. But look, lagi tayong nasa top 10, 6, 6, 6, 9, 9, 8, 8, 5, 2013, naging number 5, 7, 7. Hindi tayo nawawala sa top 10. We're the only Asian country in the top 10 of gender equality in the whole world. We have to be happy about that. And we are highly participatory. Why? We have to participate in every decision making because kung lahat tayo anak ng Diyos, dapat lahat tayo kasali. No? Lahat tayo anak ng Dakilang Amerika. The Creator is an infinite Son, is one of us. Is one of us is a ray. So, kaya about this, sa atin ay may udyok o mayroong karapatan o kusa na makilahok sa takbo ng lipunan. Everybody must have an active role no matter how small. Kaya meron tayong concept ng saling pusa. No? Filipinos demand collective equal participation in the creative process, decision-making and self-determination. No one must have a monopoly of the decision-making process. The deepest social aspirations of the Filipinos are freedom, justice, and dignity. The more choices, the better. Monopoly, dictatorship, and curtailment of choices are anathema, hindi pwedeng walang pagpipilian. Even in our traditional art, our perspective is communal. There's no single point of view. Yan, no? Bahala na kayo mamili ng gusto niyo. Yan. Hindi point of view ng isang tao lang. It's the point of view of the entire community. In our traditional arts, look, maraming point of view, maraming focal centers. And because we're all children of God, everybody is equal. No one has a right to think of himself as higher than the others. The concept of kapwa and non-duality of life make people absolutely equal in principle. Nobody has a right to regard himself as above, more important than others. Galit na galit ang Pilipina pag mayroong isang politiko, isang so-called VIP, na akala niya may karapatan siya na lumabag sa batas. He can disobey and he thinks he has the right to disobey because he has a VIP. Mayroong isang senador na pumasok sa ospital, alam niyang COVID, alam niyang infected siya ng COVID. Hindi niya inalala na baka makahawa siya, pumasok pa siya sa ospital. Pero pag ang isang mahirap gumawa ng kasalanan, lumabag lang sa quarantine, kulong, bugbog, o maaaring patayin pa nga. Yan nga eh. And in the Philippines, we have really so much hatred sa mga taong hindi sumusunod sa concept of equality. Because nobody has the right to regard himself above or more important than others. Humanity is highly prized, at least outwardly. That's why the privilege of one must be the privilege of all. The law applies to all or none at all. Ang disiplina ay hindi madadaan sa takutan. Ang isang law enforcer o opisyal ay dapat maging halimbawa ng pagsunod sa batas. Kapag sila mismo ang hindi sumusunod sa batas, wala silang otoridad o karapatang ipatupad ito sa mga mamamayan. At walang susunod. Sabihin ng mga Pilipino, ano kayo, sineswerto? O kayo nang ba anak ng Diyos? The idea of equality is so deeply ingrained in the Filipino psyche. It is a non-negotiable value. And within every human being, there are two wolves, the good and the bad one. When an authoritarian leadership disregards the law with impunity, this brings out the bad wolf in people and encourages the lawless elements in society to do likewise. If the officials themselves do not comply with the law, it sends a message that the law means nothing to them. So who will take them seriously? That's why lawlessness breeds lawlessness. If the leader is without principles and morals, the baser instinct will surface in most people. Since very few people have achieved self-control or devotion to higher causes, the bad wolf within is easily provoked, and the culture of power and culture of wealth will prevail, will win. But if the leader has the common good in mind and a genuine desire to serve the people, this will restrain the beast within, and the culture of the common good, or Pagpapakatao, may prosper. Since every person is an extension of the Creator, the urge to create exists in each of us. But further promoting this urge to create is our communal shared or participatory creativity. Communal creativity is a basic source of the great diversity of Philippine indigenous cultures. The many rituals that we observe in our feast of devotion, group pilgrimages of praying together, promote communal togetherness and concern for the common good. Nagiging mas makatao tayo, makakapwa, because we do rituals where we are together. No? And communal cultures allow people to be more expressive because closeness to others allows us to be more trusting, open, and thus more freely expressive. That's why food is tastier, speech more melodic, things of everyday life more colorful in communities where people are very close to each other. We are very rich in communal art because, as I said, where people are very close to each other, they are more creative. Whereas in the cities, people are alienated from each other. That's why people in the cities are more consumers. They're not as creative as the people in the provinces. People in the provinces look at their own arts and crafts. Look at how rich these products are. They're from the provinces. They're from our rural people. They're from indigenous people. They're not from, these are not from the cities. Yan. Galing sa probinsya lahat yan. Walang galing sa Manila yan. Our dances. These are all from the rural areas where people are more creative because they are closely knit. Very rich culture. Yeah. In particular, the practice of art does not become confined to the specialist alone, but it's for everyone. This is especially true of our indigenous peoples. Thus, there are also no special venues or spaces for artistic and other creative activities because they occur wherever and whenever there is human activity. Pagka lahat ng tao ay artist, we will now have vast resource full of practitioners of arts and crafts, thus promoting creative diversity. Kaya napakaraming klase ng art sa probinsya. For example, farmers become expert carvers, housewives become accomplished weavers, a barber can become an excellent flute player. Sa pagkain po lang kitang-kita nyo that we are creators, producers, rather than just consumers, that we are participatory. In the West, eating proceeds according to a chronological order, giving no creative choice to the eater. Hindi sila participante. Hindi sila participatory. In our participatory culture, there is no predetermined sequence of foods. The cook or host simply provides us a wide array of food choices. In the West, the way food is served is chronological, beginning with appetizer, soup, then salad, then main dish, fish, chicken, and meat. When the English serve tea or American coffee, they know dinner is over. Sa atin, it's very different. Everything is served all at once. We are free to choose the combination of food that we would like to eat at any given moment. Eating becomes a creative act. We are not just passive consumers. It is a sense of space rather than a sense of time that is created, making eating a less stressful activity. Hindi kayo hinahabol ng oras. No? And we have the right to change their taste with the liberal use of sausawan, condiments, sauces, and spices served separately from the dishes. Being gifted this creative choice is definitely conducive to health and well-being. It allows different individuals to make creative contributions within a shared social matrix. Pili na kayo ng gusto nyo. There's no time constraint. You don't have the stress to finish your soup right away because the next dish will follow. You don't have to finish your salad right away because you are waiting for the main dish. Sa atin nila nandiyan lahat, sabay-sabay lahat na yan. Including the dessert, nandiyan pati dessert. We're very free to make our own. No? It's fruitful to look at the sense of time. No? Fruitful to ponder on the positive effects on health and well-being of the concept of time implied by the way we eat, which is not clock time, not linear. No? Our time sense when we're eating is the exact opposite of clock, mechanical, or profane time. Experiments have shown that non-mechanical time is conducive to well-being. Pag hindi kayo masyadong sumusunod sa clock time, mas magiging healthy kayo. Kaya mga maraming matatanda sa probinsya, very healthy, wala naman silang orasan. This could be the reason Filipinos love the ritual of eating aside from enjoying togetherness with others. Lastly, there's nothing more dehumanizing to a human being than to feel he is merely being treated as a machine. Ayon ang Pilipina na tinatrato siya na parang makina. No? That's why office work sometimes, factory work is very demeaning or boring to many Filipinos. Pag masyado kayong tinatratong parang makina, the consequences are a rapid turnover rate, absenteeism, safety violations, high accident rate, high rates of illness, and low productivity. In the workplace and in other relationships which fail to recognize the individual as more than a robot, sabi ni isang industrial psychologist, we see negative behavior such as lack of cooperation and absenteeism. The creative, sensitive Filipino soul rebels against being treated as a mere machine or robot. Nothing could be more hateful or terrifying to the Filipino than the order, just obey, or sumunod na lang kayo. Without a clear and valid basis, an order is a form of coercion and will always be resisted because it violates the basic tenet of our being. Our being is a creative, soulful, and divine nature that always demands respect. But many officials like to impose their will on others because their addiction to power makes them so insecure. If they cannot dominate, if they cannot power trip, if they cannot control and manipulate people, their egos will suffer if they cannot show that they are the boss, lord, or master. They will treat others as enemies to be subjugated, humiliated, or even enslaved. But coercion and violence, a high-handed approach, will never work in Philippine culture. Filipinos like to be treated as friends, as family members, as partners within a community of individuals working together for the common good, as in bayanihan. Most of all, we like to be treated in the way our mother cares for us, inang mapagkalinga, caring mother. Government officials say that many Filipinos are disobedient, pasaway daw, and because of that, we have the highest number of COVID-19 cases. No, scientific data says that this is not true. Data show that they were wrong to blame the public. Mobility data from the giant tech Google LLC show that, in fact, Filipinos were doing their part and staying at home. At the height of the Luzon lockdown on April 10, Google mobility data recorded a 90% drop on people going out of their houses. 90% drop on people visiting retail outlets, including malls, compared to pre-pandemic levels. In contrast, movements in residential households, yung galaw sa loob ng bahay, tumaas ng 43% during the same period. Alam mo sabihin nun, talagang masunod rin ng mga Pilipino, hindi ito ang pasaway. Look, this is the data that was gathered by Google. Compared to Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia, tayo ang pinakamasunaran na yan. Yung yellow orange sa pinakailalim, yan ang Philippines. Pinaka nasa loob tayo ng bahay. Samantalang yung iba, nasa labas, lumalabas sila ng bahay. No? We suffered the biggest drop in shoppers during lockdown. So just to summarize my points, we're a healing culture. We celebrate life, especially the Visayans. We're highly relational and socially interconnected that leads to longevity. We're a very expressive people, especially through music and dance. This is very good because expressiveness releases harmful emotions. Everyday creativity, as in eating, promotes well-being. Touching as a way of life increases immunity to disease. Our deep belief in God makes Filipinos optimistic and provides meaning to life. And our strong sense of humor and joy of life enable us to rebound easily from any tragedy. I hope nakuha natin mabuti yung galing ng mga Pilipino. Kasi kung makikita nila sa media, even from our government officials, palaging binababa ang Pilipino, palaging parang tayo may kasalanan. Don't listen to this misinformation about who we are. Kasi mawawalan kayo ng inspiration to go on the way you live, fruitfully and creatively. So maraming pong salamat sa inyong pakikinig. Thank you very much.